I can. Can you hear me okay? Perfect.
Hello? Yeah, I can always hear you. I just wasn't sure if you could hear me, but my mic seems to be working now.
Hello, thank you, Anton. My name is Louise Sophia. I'm a fractional HR director. I'm CIPD qualified, and I'm also training to be a solicitor. I work with UK companies who are scaling, and they're in that messy bit, but they want to get it right. They want to know how to manage their people processes and also how to do it in a compliant way. And I have a specific interest in psychological safety, so building workplaces that people want to be. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rosie Hewitt. I am the founder and CEO of Rosie's People. We are a leadership, HR, and business operations consultancy. My background is everything people and business up. So I've been doing that for over 25 years. think I'm a chartered FCIPD, and we support businesses through all stages of growth, all the way from pre-seed all the way to enterprise. And we're happy to be here and well, help you with your journey and answer some questions for you.
Hi everyone, my name is Margaret Bui. I have been working in the talent space for close to 2 decades. I've been recruiting in the tech space all of this time for various companies, both large tech organizations like VMware or Expedia, but also mid-size tech companies and tech startups. Recruiting across all different functions in Europe, but also in the US and Latin America. And apart from that, I do interview coaching and training. So happy to help with anything related to hiring, interviewing, and training.
Yes, Sarah Louise is unable to talk. You may want to download the app if you can, please, because I've made you presenter, but for some reason, how did you fix yours, Margaret? How did you fix the issue you had?
I just downloaded the app on my phone. It doesn't work on my laptop. It's very annoying. But it
That
worked
is
last
very
session,
weird.
so I didn't understand why, because last session and most of the sessions it works, but it didn't work today.
That is very weird.
Yeah.
That is very strange. Okay, well, let's hope Sarah Louise will be able to try that again. Okay, let me try and admit her again. She's just trying to come in. All right, let me try and make you a presenter again, Sarah Louise. Just bear with me, please. Where are you? Yep. Okay, make presenter, change. So that could help in a few seconds. You should be able to unmute yourself now because I've made you a presenter. But if it's not working, Margaret said the way she sorted this out was to download the app on your phone or on your desktop. So if this doesn't work, you might want to try that. In the meantime, just so that we don't keep everybody else waiting, if the other 3 ladies wouldn't mind giving us their do's and don'ts, once Sarah Louise tries to sort this out, that would be great. So perhaps, again, we can start in the same order we joined. I think it was Louise, Sophia, Rosie, and then Margaret, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, in that order. What is your biggest do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage hiring? Ladies?
Great, thank you. A lot of people worry that they don't necessarily have the money in the beginning to create culture, and so they're worried about kind of the benefit side of things they can offer people. But a lot of individuals respond really well to the time aspect rather than trying to buy them something. For example, just having those weekly check-ins, being honest in one-to-ones, celebrating those small wins, all those kind of time input into your team can really build the culture more than the sort of typical Google thing you see where you want to have ping pong tables and whatnot. A don't would be, don't try to wing it when it comes to the law. There are lots of responsibilities, and just because you are early stage doesn't mean that you can ignore that. So you need to have an understanding of what your responsibilities are from day one before you hire somebody, to make sure that you don't accidentally get caught up in something. So know your rights or the law, or reach out to somebody like one of us who can help you with that. Thank you.
I think I'll go
Rosie.
next.
Yes, indeed. So it's Rosie and then Margaret. Don't worry about waiting for me to mention the names.
I think I'll go next. Thank you.
The order.
Alongside the great advice from Louise, I would say for me, the do's and don'ts, especially for early stage, be honest about what you can actually offer to potential candidates and team members from the very beginning. If you don't have cash, be honest about the equity. Make sure you've actually done your own research on your equity and actually know how your equity is structured. I've had a couple of clients who didn't quite know how their equity was structured, and that can be a very sort of negative interaction for the person you're trying to convince to join your team if you can't even explain what the benefits of giving them equity would be, and in some cases even explaining to them what equity means. And I think it's also important to be sure about what you're expecting from those people. If it's time, commitment, if you're going to be expecting them to go above and beyond, if you want them to give you time that they wouldn't normally give in a bigger company where there's a little bit more structure, you need to be very honest about the expectations and what the payouts could potentially be for them to get them engaged. Don't lie to your candidates just to get them on board. It can get tempting when you're desperate to get people in. If you don't have the runway to engage with them, don't lie about that. Don't tell them you have a 2-year runway if all you have is 2 months, because that's going to completely destroy any sort of trust that you might be able to establish in the future. And I will stop there. There's quite a lot more, but I would say for now, those are the top things for me. Just be honest, manage expectations, be clear about what you're expecting them to deliver and what the payouts could potentially be for them.
Good boy.
Sorry, I thought that was I thought it was I thought that was the last one. Sorry, the fourth one ago. So anyway, in terms of do's, I would say don't just focus on who's like done the job before. I mean, you need that for some roles, of course, but in early stage companies, flexibility, curiosity, and alignment with your values are often more valuable than exact experience. So hire people, of course, who have the skills, but also who care about the mission, who can adapt as the company grows, and who are willing to build from scratch. And ask some situational questions and perhaps consider some trial projects to assess mindset and potential. I would also say, like, leverage your network and referrals. So founders and early employees should really actively tap their networks, because referrals tend to ramp up faster and stay longer. So ask your advisors or your investors or your mentors or even customers for suggestions. You can even offer a small referral bonus for successful referrals. And this approach is low cost and can bring high quality candidates who already believe in what you're building. And the last I would say, streamline the hiring process. So top candidates won't wait weeks for a decision. So design a fast and human hiring flow. So short application, maybe like no more than 3 interview rounds, clear communication, and just keep candidates updated, and time really don't keep people waiting for 2 or 3 months while you can't make up your mind. And in terms of don'ts, I would say, don't compromise on your core values, because even someone who's very highly skilled, if they're not aligned with your values, that can really damage your culture. So don't settle just to fill the seat, and also use the interview to test the behaviors that matter most. Whether it's culture, ownership, resilience, openness, whatever you value most, because a single misaligned hire can really ripple across a small team. And the last don't, I would say, don't overpromise, the dream. Be aspirational but honest. If the role involves chaos, long hours, ambiguity, say so, because high growth companies, they still have constraints, and candidates deserve to know the reality. So don't just say, well, we'll IPO in 2 years, unless you actually have real indicators. Instead, it's better to be honest and just say, here's what we have achieved, here's what's next, and here's where you can help us grow.
Amazing. Thank you very much, ladies. That was brilliant from all 3 of you. Hopefully, Sarah Emily will be able to join us now soon. I think we can get started with the next question. Just a quick reminder, or a quick reset, rather, of the conversation. For those of you that have just joined us, especially those on the live streams, this is Startup Talent Q&A 160. I'm with some amazing talent professionals who've been there and done it. And we're going to be here for the next, only 37 minutes now, to try and help you with whatever questions you may have when building your team. Whether you want to know how and where to find the right people, how to hire them, how to interview them, how to pay them, how to decide what they should do, how to empower them, and how to keep them. This is the place to be. If you're on the Microsoft Teams call, all you have to do is just drop your question in the chat. We'll give you the mic, and then you can ask the team. If you're on the live streams, we can't monitor your questions there live, so you'd have to join us here. Quickest way to do that, it's via our website, startuptoscaleup.club. So again, startuptoscaleup.club. Once you get there, simply find today's session. It's quite easy. Startup Talent Q&A 160. You click join. A quick registration gets you a link to your email. Through that link, then you can join us live here. If, however, your questions today are not on talent, please save them for the other events we run. Monday's talent, as you can see today, but then Tuesdays it's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of each month it's UK startup law, and third Friday of each month it's UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can RSVP to any of them via our site, startuptoscaleup.club. Now, without further ado, we'll go on to our first question. As the founder of a pre-seed biotech startup in Wakefield, focused on developing microbial solutions for soil health, I'm aware of the importance of conducting background checks as we expand our lab team. Why does this sound familiar? Louise, you were here last time. What was this question last time as well?
We did this one, I believe, last time.
I'm losing my bleeding marbles, aren't I? I'm sorry, ladies. Let me just go through another one. Okay. Startup in Bath. Okay. Travel tech in Bath. Did we do that? Do you remember that at all? Probably not.
No.
No. I'm really sorry. Okay, let me go through. Good Lord. Right. Okay, I'm just doing some quick copy and paste, but at the same time, I'm doing something we men shouldn't be allowed to because we are rubbish, and that is pretending to multitask. So I just lost Sarah Emily somewhere. I was trying to. Can you hear us, Sarah Emily? Right, I was trying to make you a presenter, but that's not working. Okay, let me read out this question. Seed stage travel tech in Bath. Oh God, I'm really sorry. Here we go. Cancel. Okay. We're almost there. All right. So now we'll make Sarah Emily a presenter, and she should be able to talk soon. So for the last time, Seed Stage Travel Tech Startup in Bath, where we provide AI-driven travel planning tools for adventure tourists, we're realizing the importance of a centralized HR system to handle onboarding and payroll as our team grows. Given our limited budget, what basic HR tech options could we implement to streamline these functions without overcomplicating our process? Furthermore, how can we ensure that these tools scale with us, supporting both remote and in-office employees as we expand our service offering? For this one, maybe we can start with Rosie, then Louise Sophia, and then Margaret. And then if Sarah Emily is able to talk, if you don't mind, a quick intro. And then if you've heard the question, please feel free to answer it too. Rosie?
Thanks, Anton. Well, that's always the tricky question, that. So it would be useful to know if they had any type of budget, what the budgets look like, because that does actually help with providing some options. There are lots of potential platforms that could grow with them. Some are more pricier than others. Some are affordable. I think that there's Employee Hero is one that's basically becoming quite popular with startups at the moment. Can do lots of different things as add-ons. But I think it would be good to know, like, what is your budget? And that would be a good place to start. There are so many good options out there, and it's worth actually engaging with those platforms and requesting a demo. And what I have found is actually a lot of those companies, especially if your company is a startup and quite small, they can be quite flexible in terms of their pricing for you, because they're quite keen to grow with you. They want to join your business or partner with your business in the early stages and prove that they're able to work within your budget. So it's worth having conversations with the different service providers, even if when you do your research, you're finding online that their prices are X, Y, Z, and it may seem a bit like expensive. Quite a few of them are more than happy to be flexible with startups and accommodate your non-existent or very limited budgets, just so that they can grow with you, so that when you do actually get your funding or start generating revenue, you will have the funds to then pay properly. That would be my current suggestion.
Great. I agree with absolutely everything that's been said so far. They are super flexible at trying to find a rate and a package that works for you, which also means you don't necessarily need to take all the tools at face value. You can pick and choose what works for you. I'm a big fan of automating any parts of the tasks that can be automated. So things like you want to have a workflow for like your onboarding. So look at the options and say, okay, is this package just sort of a glorified Excel spreadsheet that looks a bit nicer, or is it actually going to give you some automations? You can have options, for example, when you do your onboarding, that the moment an employee is loaded into the system, then you can send them their onboarding docs. You can trigger workflows to make sure that a lot of the processes are really nicely automated for you. That's also really nice if you have a dashboard that like investors or anybody else can go in and have a look and see. For example, I know that on Bright HR, you can do costings and payroll and things as well. So have a look at what your needs are. What are your non-negotiables? Do you need payroll to be integrated at this stage or not? Do you need something more basic? And have a look. The best way is to do demos with those and see what kind of options they have. And then you can start to build out. If you really want to save money, a lot of places, actually, you don't need to jump straight into a big tech software package. You can just use an old-fashioned Excel as long as you document everything clearly. I'll let someone else have a go.
Is it me now?
Yeah, I think it's just us three. So you go.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, Margaret.
I mean, I would definitely go for something like lightweight, all-in-one HR tools that are designed for startups. So our current company, and actually quite a few companies I've worked for, we use Bamboo HR, and there's like a starter tier that we can use. But yeah, I remember quite a few startups that I use Bamboo HR, but even platforms like Deal that we use as well, or Gusto, Remote, and there's another one called HiBob. And they offer streamlined onboarding, payroll, time off tracking, document management, all in one place. And I think they also have like startup friendly pricing or discounts. Like if you're hiring internationally, tools like Deal or Remote, we use Deal at Mixmax. They help with contractor compliance and global payroll. I think, just to avoid overcomplicating things early on, choose a system with like modular features. So start with onboarding and payroll, and then you can layer in performance or benefits features later, because you might not need that to start with. And also like ensure that the tool supports both remote and in-office workflows. So like, signatures, asynchronous onboarding, which I presume you do as well. We also use tools like Notion or Airtable for any kind of onboarding checklist. So yeah, actually we use Notion for that. So and I think, just like pick a provider also with API integration, so you can connect it later with your ATS if you have one, accounting software, or communication tools like Slack. And I mean, Bamboo HR definitely connects with Slack because we have it connected. So as your team grows, this flexibility would be essential, just to keeping processes centralized, compliant, and efficient without possibly needing a full HR team.
Sarah Emily, are you able to talk now?
I am. Hello, everyone.
Oh, yes, rock and roll at last. Thank you very much. Did you hear the
answered
question?
Yeah, I did. So let me answer the question first, and I'll do a super quick intro because no one wants an intro halfway through. So my favorite system for this kind of smaller scale would probably be Charlie HR. I really like it for actually a lot of the reasons which Margaret outlined. So the way that it integrates with other systems, the workflows that it will offer you, the fact that it, you can set up all of your onboarding from within it, and your e-signatures, etc. I think for me, for the size and scale of business, it doesn't come with a price tag of a Bamboo or a Rippling or a HiBob or anything like that. And it also has a modular approach, so like the pricing can be really flexible for that. So anyway, I like them. I've also worked with Employee Hero, so I know there's lots and lots of others out there. It just so happens that actually the last 2 clients that I worked with, they went for Charlie HR in the end. So that would be my recommendation there. And again, completely agree with a lot of the points made by everybody, but in particular the kind of modular approach and all of the different elements that can make up a system that will scale with you that were outlined by Margaret. So I fully agree with those. In terms of myself, usually pretty good with tech, but apparently Teams just hates me. We are not friends. Anyway, here I am now. Background in legal, so I'm a qualified lawyer specializing in Islamic financial compliance, which is very different from what I do now. Have been in the people and talent space for about 15 years and handle most things kind of pre-seed to Series D is my happy place. Have also worked with some larger companies, so pre-IPO Uber and Booking.com to name a couple of those. I work very internationally, so I've been based in 11 countries so far, and currently I'm working with a couple of health tech startups to help them through their kind of scaling and the challenges that come with growing into different markets. Particular focuses for me are helping companies move into APAC and North America. And that's me. Thank you. And sorry about my tech issues.
No, thank you very much. And sorry about those issues you had, Sarah Emily. Unfortunately, it happens to the best of us. I guess we can go on to the next question now. Just a quick reminder, I can see my laptop and my other phone pinging, so I'm guessing people on the live streams might be trying to reach out. Just a quick reminder, if you're tuning in via LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, we are unable to monitor your questions that are live. So if you do want to ask anything to these amazing ladies we have on our panels today, you'll need to be here on our audio only call on Microsoft Teams. Quickest way to get here is via our site, startuptoscaleup.club. You find today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 160. Click join. It's a quick registration that gets you onto, it gets you a link to your email. Then through that link, you can join us here. And we're here to help founders with whatever questions you have in terms of building your team for success. If your questions, by the way, today are not on talent, please save them for the other events we run. Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising. Second Friday of each month it's UK Startup Law, and third Friday of each month it's UK Startup Finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can RSVP to any of them via our site, startuptoscaleup.club. Now, for those of you that are here, if you do want to ask any questions, simply drop your question in the chat. We'll then give you the mic and you can ask the team. And talking of the team, if you ladies would like to drop your LinkedIn URL in the chat, that would be great, because you see, we've had 280,000 people join us through all these sessions in just over 4 years, and none of that would have happened without you. So I'm grateful for your help. And I guess the least people can do is show some love and follow you on LinkedIn. Now, let's go on to the second question they've sent. I'm a co-founder of a green construction startup in Glasgow, preparing for Series A, where we develop sustainable building materials to reduce construction waste. As we grow, it's becoming crucial to onboard new hires effectively, especially given the technical knowledge required in our field. Without a dedicated HR team, what practical steps can we take to create a structured, informative onboarding experience? Additionally, how can we incorporate elements of our sustainability mission into onboarding to help new employees feel immediately connected to our values? It's an interesting one. So maybe we can start with Louise again, then Margaret, then Rosie, and then Sarah Emily, please. Ladies.
Great, thank you so much, Anton. So I would say make sure you get all of the admin stuff out of the way early, because that can be a distraction. If you're trying to get people to connect to your values, but 2 weeks, 3 weeks in, they're still kind of thinking, oh, when is it an awkward or a good time for me to ask about my contract or my pay or signing something? Make sure you get all of that really nicely wrapped up and have a workflow for that, so they can then start to actually connect with your company and not feel like they're on the outside. I would also say that as much as we love kind of onboarding materials, most of the time, in my experience anyway, people have really benefited from that hands-on experience, just getting stuck in, but supported. So buddy them up with somebody and then actually get them working on something so they start to feel connected. I'm also a huge advocate of looking at what your external branding looks like and how that weaves through the company. So make sure that if you're telling the outside world that your company is all about, we absolutely love to consider the mental health of our employees, we'll consider inside the company, does it actually feel like that? And make sure that that there isn't a disconnect between what you're externally saying and what you're internally saying. I'll hand over.
Now it's me. So, yeah, I think, for a growing green construction startup without a dedicated team, onboarding definitely doesn't have to be complex, but at the same time, it should be intentional. So I would start by creating clear, repeatable onboarding flow, using simple tools like, even Google Docs, Notion, or Trello. We actually use Notion for that, but one of the other companies I've worked for, they use Trello. So this should include maybe not maybe welcome pack, maybe a 30, 60, 90-day plan, and a kind of technical documentation, key contacts for each department. You can also add short pre-recorded videos from founders or team leads that explain the product, company mission, technical foundations. I remember when I worked for Typeform a few years ago, or mind you, they already probably had 300 employees by then, but they would actually do this onboarding kind of live. So there would be a day where they would have, we would have live sessions, but obviously that they had like 10 people joining on the same day. So, but pre-recorded videos could work just as well. But I think that would be a really good idea. People just kind of get to know the people who work for the company. And in terms of embedding your mission, I would just weave it into every step of your onboarding. So have a company values presentation, share case studies that show the environmental impact of your materials. You can invite new hires to join a sustainability focused Slack channel or a virtual town hall. You can maybe also assign them a green buddy, right? So normally there will be like a buddy system. So you can call it a green buddy, and that will be an existing team member who embodies your values and can help them connect to the bigger picture early on. So even simple things like that can go a long way in creating an engaging and mission-aligned onboarding experience.
Thank you very much, Margaret. I think the next one was Sarah Emily.
Hi.
No, my bad. Or Rosie, but carry on. Sorry, carry on, Sarah Emily. My bad, Rosie.
No. I was confused. I thought everyone had gone, so I'm happy to hand over to Rose and I'll go last.
You sure? Okay, Rosie?
Oh, okay. Thank you. I was quite happy for her to go next if she wanted to. Yeah, so all the good things said by Louise and Margaret, I support those as well. I think I would just add to those. I think when you don't have a designated HR team, it becomes even more important that information that is shared during the onboarding stage is accessible throughout the life cycle of your employment, because people will forget what you told them during onboarding, and you may have lots of great onboarding meetings spread out, but they might still forget. So having a place, I think Margaret kind of touched on it, like a Notion page or whatever, where you could potentially just have a knowledge hub, if you like, of those important values and a reminder of what those actually mean in practice in the organization. I think it's also important for the company to embed into their culture maybe a weekly fun stuff that's linked directly to their mission and values. But most importantly, I think the leaders have to constantly be demonstrating those values and that mission. There's no point telling people, oh, we're like this, and we're all about sustainability and we care about the planet. But every week the CEO might be jetting off somewhere in his private jet to go on a 1-2 hour flight, and maybe does 10 flights a week or something. Those things matter. So I think it's important that the leaders themselves are also the sort of shining example of the behavior that they're expecting their team to embody and also portray. There's no point just saying that you're about something or just creating banners and doing good PR if in actuality you're not living and demonstrating those values.
Right. So I really like what Rosie just said about making sure that it's the onboarding plus, as in what comes next. Making sure that there is that repetition, not everything goes in the first time. The other thing is, in terms of making the content consumable, we all know that people learn in different ways, right? So some people can read endless sheets of paper and absorb it. Some people need something a bit more interactive. What I have found works really well, and this is just one of the products out there that does this, but Uji AI is really good for this. We've been using it to essentially upload decks for training. And you can either turn it into sort of videos that are mixed with interactive things, or fully gamify it if you want to. So you can turn it into whatever type of learning content you want, and then host it on either your own platform or have logins for everyone on their platform. For me, this is a really good way to make sure that it continues to cycle through. It's also a great way to make sure that the content will kind of be the same every time, to make sure everyone's onboarded in the same way. Makes it accessible for everybody, either remote or in-house and at different times to suit everyone. And it cuts down the cost and need for having sort of staff run through things. And I think a few one-on-ones are helpful, certainly when someone's getting onboarded. But if you want to get someone to grips with overall big themes and topics and kind of where are we headed and all that kind of stuff, it can be very repetitive, and that might be something that will sink in better via some other methodology of training. So that's that piece. With respect to values, I think you have to make sure it's a common theme throughout all of your people processes. And I think this is often forgotten, is like the part where you start really making sure that people become entrenched in your values as sort of post onboarding even. To me, this is something that needs to be embedded in your entire talent life cycle. So it should be a really big part of how you interview. And it should obviously be then replicated throughout how the business works, within the training. It should be a really easily identifiable common theme between all of that. So that would be my encouragement, is to map out the people process as it sits today and see how you can make sure that those values can be kind of overlaid on top of that, to make sure they're represented throughout. So it needs to make sure that it's part of your performance cycle, part of your onboarding, part of your interviewing, part of your selection process. All of those things need to adhere back to your values.
Is it just me, or all this stuff that most people find absolutely boring, all these things? This is amazing. This is pure gold. I think I'm just getting way too excited for this, but I'm very grateful to our panel today. I think we've got a question live. Where is Vedanshu? Are you able to talk? I've given you the mic. Can you hear us? No?
Yes,
Being
can
shy.
am I audible?
Yep, yes, you are. Please feel free
Yeah.
to quickly introduce yourself, Vedanshu, and then fire away with your question to the panelists, please.
Surely. My name is Vedanshu. I'm based in India. Currently, I'm working on a startup which is building a lead gen tool for freelancers and agency. It is completely AI-based. At the moment, as I'm in the very beginning of my journey, I'm also at the same time we are growing fast in terms of getting more revenue and also offering services. The challenge that I'm currently facing is how I can retain a top talent that I'm having in the team rather than just offering them the higher salaries.
That's a very good question, Vedanshu. That's a very good question, and thank you very much for your question, and very well done on your venture so far, Vedanshu. I think that's a billion-dollar question. There's plenty of companies out there with a ton of funding that still don't get it right. I'll pass it on to the ladies, but for me, what I've found, I guess, two things that have helped with this. Number one is to give people the freedom to be adults and to do something that they love and feel like, they're more than just a number there. That goes a long way. And the second thing is dangle that carrot that, today we are not paying maybe the salaries that you can get at Meta if you can get there. But if this has success, you'll learn, you'll become a much better professional. And if we go public or when we sell this company or whatever it may be, you're going to get some hefty payback in terms of that equity pool. For me, these two have been the main things that have worked. Let's see what the ladies think. Let's start with Sarah, Emily. Then we'll go on to Rosie, then Margaret, and last but not least, Louise Sophia, please.
Thank you. All right, so this is a great question because actually, truthfully, the right formula for you depends on who your workforce is, right? But for me, it's a combination of a few things. There's this kind of career growth that's built into company development and their own development. So things like, you have to make sure the company vision and where you're headed is clear, and they have to understand how they fit into that. There's things around progression opportunities and stretch opportunities, mentoring and coaching, exposure. Those are the kinds of things I'm thinking of there. And actually, we just had this in the previous question, is how to make sure people are aligned to your values. Well, actually, purpose and mission and the alignment to that, I think, is really key in how you retain employees. People will forego quite a few things if they really feel like they're part of something that's making the world a better place, for example. It's something that I've seen quite prevalent in health tech. It doesn't pay quite as well as some other areas of tech, but it's very popular because people are very attached to the mission and the purpose of the company that they're working with. A pretty obvious one that also Anton touched on would be autonomy, trust, how they operate, how they go about their day, and kind of to minimize the impact on the business is you could have something like core hours, but outside of that, you'd have flexible hours. Just as an example, it depends on what works for your business, but those are some things that that I would look at. I also, overall flexibility and well-being is something that there is an increasing focus on. So elements within that is I don't know, potentially outside of a flexible working model, you may look in the future at some sort of sabbatical pattern for someone that's been there a bit longer. But in terms of much longer term retention, again, Anton's mentioned it, if you're tying someone in with equity, I think that's a really big part of it. But all of this, for me at least, and from my experience, is underpinned by how you connect the people to where you're going. Because then the smaller steps, like I didn't get an increase, I don't know, in this last year or the last 6 months, matters a lot less if someone's really connected to the vision and where you're headed, and they understand why this kind of short-term taking a back seat on something is necessary in order to connect to it. Now, there is a degree of elasticity attached to that concept, meaning that you can't do it forever. But I think a big part of how you get people to stay is the culture and how you operate within the business, not just money. I'll pass over to the next person.
Thanks, Sarah. I agree with everything you've said. I would definitely would echo quite a few of those myself. The trust, the autonomy, and I think that having some structure, so kind of going back to what you said about core hours is very important, especially in this sort of environment. I always recommend to my clients, whether you're a startup or a big enterprise, it's important that you do have a professional code of conduct set out, that people understand that these are the expectations, behavioral expectations of the organization. And when you're working in a remote setting, in an environment where things can change very quickly, especially in startups and scale-up type environments, it becomes even more important that you set those behavioral expectations early. It's also important that you're having regular and honest communication with your team to really help to build that cohesion and refocusing everybody to making sure that everyone is pulling the right direction together. They're all working towards the same objectives, and people haven't deviated. Mission, purpose, values, always very important, always very good. Really important, I suppose you'd call it, litmus test to do when you're recruiting people to join your team, especially at that early stage. Having one person who is not aligned and who is vocally unaligned and disruptive can cause so much damage. So it's so important when you're choosing your people that you choose the right type of people, the people that are willing to grow and are flexible, and as much as possible understand the environment that they're coming into, or at least are willing to understand the type of environment that they're going into if they've never worked in a startup environment, because for some it can be a big culture shock to them. I'll stop because I'm mindful that we're running out of time so that my colleagues can say stuff as well.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said as well about being connected to the mission and treating people like adults, and opportunities for learning. So I think in terms of other strategies, potentially create some transparent career paths, because even in a flat startup, people want to know how they can grow. So outline how they can increase scope, influence, or potentially move into leadership role as the company scales. That could be a really nice incentive. I'm not sure whether anyone mentioned like equity or performance-based incentives, but even like a small equity grant can create a sense of ownership. Also, when people like prioritizing psychological safety and feedback, so when people feel safe to speak up, experiment and fail without punishment, they stay engaged, so regular check-ins and transparent communication, that builds that trust and also prevents burnout. Startups also move very fast and sometimes forget to pause, so celebrate wins, whether they big or small. Any kind of recognition, even informal, reminds people that their work matters and boosts morale as well. And also tailor roles around strengths. So in a fast-moving environment, let team members lean into what they do best, because again, that keeps motivation high, while still allowing for flexibility and some kind of cross-functional learnings. And be human, support work-life balance, acknowledge stress, offer flexibility whenever possible. I think a founder who checks in personally reminds people that their work matters, just shows empathy. They really earn long-term loyalty. So it's not just about perks, of course, it's about purpose and growth and recognition and trust. When people actually feel that they're building something meaningful with you, they're much more likely to stick around, even when it's hard.
Thank you. Loads of great stuff mentioned. I was watching on Netflix this weekend about the Titan documentary, and the one key takeaway that came from that was that they went through a series of various top director of engineering because the CEO couldn't take feedback. So I think building on the trust point there that Margaret was mentioning is that it's so important for us as founders and leaders to kind of get out of our own way and be open to the possibility that people might have genuine feedback that's really useful. And although you don't have to take every single bit of feedback in as something you want to act on, but you have to at least allow the space to listen to it and a safe space for them to tell you things, because ultimately the point of having a team is that everybody can tell you things that you either don't know or might not see, or to really make sure you'll spot those icebergs. There's no point if everybody just says yes and listens to what you're saying if you're not really making the most of the fact you have a team, so that everybody, when they feel connected to your mission, can then spot those icebergs, or in this case with the Titan documentary about what terrible material piece or whatever it was, and they might be able to really give you something useful. So my takeaway would be to really get out of your own way and create that culture of transparency and trust that people feel that they can be honest. Over to you, Anton.
Well, thank you very much for that, ladies. Really appreciate it. I hope you found that helpful, Vedanshu.
Yes, 100%. Thank you everyone for such valuable. I was busy in making notes. Thank you so much. This is
You're very welcome. You're very welcome and best of luck. Now we've got 2 minutes to go. I understand Rosie needs to drop out, as well as Margaret. Sarah, Emily, and Louise, do you have time for a quick question that was sent to us, or shall we wrap it up?
I can stay for another couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, ladies. Really appreciate that. Okay, so we'll try and be quick with this. It's kind of short, but it could beg quite a long answer too. So, co-founder of a seed stage ed tech startup in Nottingham, building digital tools for remote learning. She says, as our team grows, I want to ensure that employees aren't overwhelmed by the fast-paced environment. What steps can we take to offer flexible working arrangements whilst ensuring that team productivity doesn't suffer? It's quite a question. Okay, Margaret can say that too. Margaret, yeah, you can go first if you like, and then
Yeah.
Louise, and
Sure.
last but not least, Sarah Emily, please.
Yeah, just very quickly, I think offering flexible working arrangement is great. I'm a huge fan. So start by focusing on outcomes, not hours, So define what success looks like for each role, have measurable goals and outcomes. And you can use async tools like Notion or Trello for project visibility. And I think it's a good idea to have core collaboration hours where all team members are available to connect, regardless of the working patterns. But yeah, I think having flexible working hours can really be like a very powerful motivator for people to stay in a company. And I think to prevent overwhelm, encourage any kind of regular check-ins, whether it's weekly one-to-ones, just to spot early signs of burnout, so in case you need to adjust workload. But flexibility works best when expectations are clear. So it's very important that you document processes, that you set boundaries around availability. And I think, like you want to have a culture that values rest as much as speed, and that kind of approach just builds trust and keeps your team aligned. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Margaret, and have a good week. Well, good week, sorry. Have a good rest of the week.
You too.
I think we said, thank you. I think we said Louise and then Sarah Emily, please.
Great. I would also just make a note of your understanding that it's not going to be possible for them to do absolutely everything, and that will sometimes contribute to the feeling of overwhelm. So sometimes even just understanding that they can break down the tasks into, okay, what's urgent, what is the priority here, and looking at their to-do list with them and be like, okay, well, this can be pushed to next week, this is the urgent focus, and just going through a sort of matrix of understanding that then some tasks will need to be pushed because not everything can be done in the same day. So just having that awareness of their time and giving them practical tools to target any of that burnout. Course, also making sure there's not too many meetings during the day. A lot of the time when people are on calls and on meetings, work isn't necessarily getting done. So make sure that your meetings are really as concise as they can be, get the decisions that you need out of those meetings, and then move on. But just understanding then that how are they going to assess their workload into what needs to be done now, what can be pushed to tomorrow, what can be delegated, and what can be dropped.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Sarah Emily, please.
I really like actually what Louise just said. So building on that a little bit, I think the first thing I would look at is your leadership layer or your manager layer ready to manage a flexible working team? Because we can say yes, but if the management team doesn't understand how to make that work effectively, like making sure that meetings are effective, etc., then it won't work, right? So that's my number one thing, actually, is making sure that your management layer is also set up for this flexible working. For me, then the second piece of how to make it work more practically is like making sure that you align on where the flex is in the policies and what that actually looks like for people. Flexible working can be around time or location, so let's make sure we're clear about it. And then making sure that those flexible working policies, if you want to make policies or ways of working, are also aligned to the business goal. so that the non-negotiable elements of those are clear, but also that then, you know, what are some of the things where we can have leeway on. So just making sure that flexible working is clear in terms of the context of the business that you're in, not just that everyone thinks it's a free-for-all, because that can quite often be the case. The other piece is then making sure that expectations and then kind of measurables, so if you call them KPIs, OKRs, whatever it is, or something a little bit more relaxed than that, but making sure that expectations and kind of measurements of success are clear, because then people will understand what's expected of them, and what their deliverables are. And I think if you're not clear on those, that can then lead to much more complex, less fun conversations further down the line. The final kind of more obvious piece, but actually something that weirdly a lot of people still get wrong, is then making sure that people have the right tools to be able to act on the flexibility that you're offering. And that sounds like a given, but you would probably, well, Anton and co wouldn't be surprised, but some of you may be surprised by how much of a miss this one can turn out to be as well. So make sure that you equip your teams properly, so that they are able to take advantage of your flexible working agreements. And I think that's a good way to round this out. Thank you.
And thank you. Actually, unfortunately, I've seen this getting, well, where they get it quite wrong, even with more established companies, let alone startups. And that's very important. I'm kind of repeating some of the stuff that was mentioned here, but for me, some of the stuff that is really important on this is, number one, remembering that it is your baby, not theirs. Unfortunately, I'm guilty of this as well, or I've been guilty, not as much lately as I'm actively trying to remember that, but you often forget that, you know, this is your baby, your startup. It's not theirs. You can't expect everybody to put in, you know, 19 hours a day like you do. That's really important. Two is, in the ladies mentioned flexibility, which is brilliant, but often you also need to understand that as long as people do their work, you can't just force it on them to put in and clock in and out. And something that I'm seeing lately quite a lot, and maybe that's because this was sort of, for most startups, it was conference season, June, but a lot of people are being encouraged or sometimes forced, or sometimes it's a given to go to all these events, sometimes to organize these events, but then they also are expected to do their job, and I'm doing air quotes now, on top of that. Well, hang on. All of this is part of their job. You can't expect somebody to go and be at events all day and then come and spend 8 hours in the evening to do the work that has to be done. So please bear that in mind. I'm not saying you do this, but I'm just saying what I've lately seen. So that's something to be taken into account. We are now 6 minutes over the line, so my apologies, Sarah, Emily, and Louise Sophia, for keeping you later than our program time. If you ladies have a second for some parting words, I'd appreciate it. But perhaps we can start with Louise and then Sarah, Emily, please. Any parting words for us?
Great, thank you. When I was working as a CEO of startups, one thing that really worked so well for me and my team was I always actually assumed that I was at fault first. If somebody didn't understand something, or the expectations weren't there, or the performance wasn't there, I looked at myself first and worked back from that point. Right, what have I done wrong as the leader or the manager that this person has not completed the task, or not met my expectations, or we're miscommunicating? Immediately when I approach it from that point of view, the way that those conversations go are much more positive, because then it means also as a leader, I'm doing my due diligence to make sure, am I setting out briefs clearly? Am I handing over the tasks well? Am I setting out the expectations? But then it also means that we go into those conversations and it's not a defensive kind of, well, this is my company and I'm paying you, and you're not performing, and it just doesn't go in like that. The conversation is way more productive if I look at, have I covered all my bases first as a leader, and I take that problem on as I assume I've done something wrong, have a look at my own processes first, have a look at the conversations I've had with them, and approach it almost devil's advocate against my own self. And then you will find that naturally those conversations become really transparent, productive, and honest, and that served me very well when I was a CEO of a startup. Thank you again, Anton, for this Q&A today, and I'll hand over to my panelists. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Louise Sophia. Last but not least, Sarah Emily, please.
I really like Louise's. That's a great one. I think for me, also down to kind of comm style, transparency is key. People are only as good as the information that they have. So the way that you deliver updates or get people to know that it's crunch time, I think being transparent with your team helps build culture and helps build accountability, and overall just kind of a better team ethos, because if they see that you're being open, it gives everyone else permission to do the same. And so that for me, in terms of how you make sure that you retain talent, how you make sure that people get it without them necessarily getting the same attachment level that you have, I think is really key. So take time with how you communicate with your team. That's my parting words. Thank you for having me. And sorry about my tech issues. We've now got it figured out.
Thank you very much, Emlyn. Sorry you had these issues. Right, we are now 9 minutes over the line. So just huge thank you to the amazing ladies that joined us on the panel, especially Sarah Emily and Louise Sophia that stayed a bit later. Thank you to all of those who tuned in, especially those that did it here on Microsoft Teams rather than the live streams. And thank you to those that sent questions, but most especially to Vedanshu that asked them live. You see, I keep repeating this, but without risking to sound like a broken record, it is much better if you drop your questions live in the chat, because one, it makes for a better conversation, but most importantly, our amazing stellar panelists will end up giving you better answers that work best for you if you're here live, because we can ask follow-ups and so on. So bear that in mind next time, please. Just a quick reminder on two things. Number one, the Startup of the Month campaign, it's still running. What that means is we pick one startup each month where we feature you at the beginning of each session to the people that tune in. And that's obviously also retained in the recording of all our Q&As. So if you'd like to be featured and exposed to our community of fellow founders and investors and operators, please feel free to apply. You can do that. Simply go to our site, startuptoscaleup.club. You can then on the menu find Startup of the Month and just follow the instructions there. The second part is that we run 6 regular sessions. So if you'd like to register to any of them, go to our site, again, startuptoscaleup.club, find your preferred session, click join, quick registration, get you a link to your email. We run 6, as I said, Mondays talent, Tuesdays product and tech, Wednesdays growth, Thursdays fundraising, second Friday of each month, it's UK startup law, and third Friday of each month, it's UK startup finances. That all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. As far as my parting words are concerned, just remember the startup journey can be both exciting but also quite challenging. So try to have some fun in the meantime and be kind to yourself and everyone else for that matter. Otherwise, thank you again. Have a great and brilliantly amazing week ahead of you. And maybe join us tomorrow for Startup Product and Tech Q&A. Thank you and God bless. Bye-bye for now.